Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we got two things to do today. Number one, we're going to talk about Minions, the Rise of Gru, and then the second thing is much more important. We'll get to that after. Let's talk about Minions, the Rise of Gru real quick. It's the fifth one. If you liked the other ones, you're probably going to like this one. If you didn't like the other ones, you're not going to like this one. Right? Pretty simple, pretty basic. I laughed out loud multiple times throughout the movie. Other adults also in the theater also laughed out loud multiple times throughout the movie. Is it the most amazing movie I've ever seen? No. Is it funny? If you are open to having a childish sense of humor, yes, it's funny. If I were to nitpick, which is not what I want to do here today, but if I were to take a serious look at this movie and try to somehow make it better or whatnot, I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilers, but you know what's going to happen as soon as you start this movie. The villains of the movie, Gru's a villain, but, the antagonists of the movie are this supervillain team called the Vicious Six. And they're introduced at the beginning of the movie. I walked in, I was a little bit late, we'll get to that in a minute. So I walked in as the introductions were happening, so I didn't get all of them, but they have this big introduction scene at the beginning, and they're all different. They're all very distinct. One of them her name's Bell Bottom. She's like the de facto leader of them. She gets the most lines, she gets the most screen time, she gets the most attention. It's unclear what exactly her powers are, if any. She just has like different 80s themed gadgets, disco themed gadgets that she can use. One of them has like a big crab claw. One of them is a nun named Nunchuck, who has nunchucks and can also levitate or something. So they're all different and distinct, which normally would be a good thing, right? One of the biggest criticisms of the MCU movies is that they all end with this battle against a bunch of people that are exactly the same, right? But even though they're all different, they don't use that in any interesting way. At one point, they all go out to chase Gru down, and they all have their own unique vehicles. And again, visually, it looks kind of interesting, but they don't do anything with that. There's no reason for them to all be different. The only time we get to see anything interesting happen, and again, I'm getting into spoilers here, but towards the end of the movie, they use this magical amulet to transform into different animal creatures. You see that in the trailer because they also transform the minions into animal creatures. And there are some pretty interesting shots and scenes during that scene. Interesting scenes during that scene. But that's not based on the characters. That's just a magical transformation that happened. So, put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. The whole movie is Gru trying to impress this group that he wants to be a part of. They have also kicked out I don't know if he was the leader or if he's just the oldest one, but he founded the group. So they've kicked out the founder, called Wild Knuckles, which is a weird name. I don't understand it. Who is Gru's favorite villain. And so, through different shenanigans, Gru and Wild Knuckles team up and take down the Vicious Six, and they end up transforming them into very small rodents, and they get captured, right? And Wild Knuckles has a character arc, kind of, because he's got this henchman, but his whole thing is that he's mad at his teammates because they didn't show any loyalty, and then he gets Gru to show him loyalty, which I guess isn't really a character arc for Wild Knuckles, but I guess he's at least a character that has things that he cares about, and so you see him change his perspective on Gru from just this little kid to, oh, this guy could, this could be my guy. And Gru has a bit of a character arc because he idolizes the Vicious Six, and then he ends up going against them, but really it's because his favorite villain is Wild Knuckles, and so he's just working with Wild Knuckles. So he's not really growing throughout that. He's just focusing on one particular villain to idolize rather than all of them. And the Vicious Six don't have an arc because at the beginning of the movie they want to get rid of the old guy because he's old, and they don't want to take the kid because he's a kid. And they maintain that throughout the whole movie, and then they're captured. So nobody really has an arc. Nobody really changes. So this is my Nano V Movies type pitch of how you could make a couple small changes and add a more thematic element to this movie, and that is make the Vicious Six all boring and the same, right? So while Knuckles founds this group, and he is distinct, right? But then the other 5 or 6 of them, I guess it's 5 main ones throughout, because they've kicked the one out and they're looking for the 6th. So the other 5 should all be pretty much the same, right? Maybe they started as his henchmen, and he's got one particular type, right? And they can have, you know, a different weapon or a different vehicle or whatever. That doesn't really matter. But, like, they should all be the same. Which, by the way, yes, the real reason they're all different is just so that they can sell different toys. Because if they're all the same, you're not going to sell 5 versions of the same toy. I hate that toy sales are what determines what goes into a movie. But that's why they're all different, even though it doesn't matter. That's why they all have a vehicle, even though it doesn't matter. And that's why every character gets transformed into an animal, even though it doesn't matter. But putting that aside, if all 5 of the main villains are pretty much the same, and now Gru is distinct and different, right? Because he's a child, because he thinks differently, because he's got the minions. This is supposed to be a Minions movie, and, like, they kind of have their own side adventures, but for the most part, they don't really play into the main storyline. But Gru is distinct, right? So, the challenge, the obstacle that Gru should have to overcome in order to join the Vicious Six should not be to impress them or anything like that. Because in the continuity of these series, he's already stolen like the crown from the Queen of England? He did that in the first Minions movie. So he should be on people's radars. He should be on the map. Why does, that's not nothing. You know what I'm saying? So his obstacle should not be to try to impress these people or to impress Wild Knuckles. What he should be faced with is, do I accept that in order to join this group, I have to, lose what makes me unique. I have to stop dressing the way I dressed. I have to stop using my minions, which he is all up for in this movie, but he should have a stronger connection with them. We show that he has a stronger connection with them, but he acts like he doesn't. So that should be kind of flipped around, is that he knows he has a strong connection with them, but he's told he has to get rid of them, right? So they should be trying to make him conform to what their idea is, right? Not an issue that he's a kid, but like, you talk funny. Why are you talking funny? You need to talk like us. You dress funny. Why do you dress funny? You need to dress like us. Your minions are funny. We don't want your minions around. You got to get rid of your minions, right? They should be trying to get him to lose what makes him unique and interesting to conform to be on this team. And then shenanigans happen. And through Wild Knuckles, he should learn that, oh no, I don't want to be just another part of this team of boring villains. I want to be my own villain, and I want to do things my way, and I want to be unique. And then you've actually got a pretty decent message for a kids movie, which this movie doesn't have. Now, not every kids movie needs to have that, but if you put that in here, it doesn't take anything away except for the different toys. Right? And there are ways to do it where, they can all have a different color or whatever, right? There's 6 of them. There's 6 colors of the rainbow. So you can still make different toys, and certain kinds of people will still buy those. And you can still have the different vehicles and whatever. But having them be so vastly different but then not do anything. And that's the other option, is just do something interesting with how different they are. But they don't. This is way longer than I wanted to talk about this movie for. But there you have it. Those, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. But if I were going to try to make it a good movie, that's how I would go about doing it. But now let's get that out of here. If that's all you care about, goodbye. Have a nice day. But what we really got to talk about today is movie concessions. So I had gone out. I'm recording this on Saturday. I went out on Friday, yesterday. Did some stuff in the morning. Did some stuff in the afternoon. And decided on a whim, hey, I'm going to go see Minions. Film officially, the start time was 5:30. I got there at like 5:45 because there's always previews. But I had not yet eaten lunch or dinner. I had not eaten since breakfast. And I have my AMC popcorn bucket that I usually take with me if I'm hungry and I'm going to the movies. But I didn't have that with me. And I was out of town, in a different town. So I couldn't go get it. So I'm going to the theater and I'm thinking to myself, I am hungry. What can I get to eat that's going to actually fill me up, right? Because candy, that's not going to do it. And I didn't want to buy popcorn without my bucket because that just feels like wasting money. And I was like, I know this place has like little pizzas, but I've gotten one of those before. That's not much. I'm pretty sure they've got hot dogs. That might be okay, but that's not much. And I headed to the bathroom before I went to the concessions, and I'm thinking a nice big pretzel would be pretty good, right? And I was like, I don't know if they have pretzels. I'll have to check and see. They probably have pretzels, right? That seems like a common thing. Now I want you to think for a minute about how big you think a really big pretzel would be. Because to me, I go out sometimes and I buy the soft pretzels that you can get at the store. And they're like that big, right? And I feel like your standard pretzel that you'd get at a concessions or something is like that big. So I'm imagining maybe they've got something a little bit bigger, right? Well, I go up to the concessions, and the first thing I see is pretzel bites, which I feel like I've had before, and they're not very great. And I was like, I don't want the pretzel bites. And then I see this option for what I believe they call a Bavarian Legend. Something Legend. And it literally described it as a giant soft pretzel. And you could not tell based on this picture how big the pretzel was. So I was taking a chance. But I decided to go with the pretzel. The pretzel is like $15. It's quite a bit for a pretzel. But I was like, it seems like the best option to fill me up. So that's what I'm going to go with. Something bready, So I ordered the pretzel. And it took a couple minutes to get ready. Which is why I was a little bit late going into the movie. But I don't think I missed anything crucial. But let me tell you guys. This pretzel was this big. It was ginormous. And not only was it big, I hate to use this word on the internet, but it was girthy. It was thick. It was a thick boy pretzel. And they served it in what's basically a pizza box. Like, it was huge. And like, as they're getting it ready, other people in the area are like, oh my gosh, that's a huge pretzel. So apparently it's not a commonly seen food item at this theater. I had certainly never seen it before. But I get my pretzel and I take it to my seat. Now there's a couple things you might be thinking with this giant pretzel. Number one, oh sure, it was big. But it probably, was like hard or crusty like those pretzels are, right? You get a pretzel at a concession stand, and there's always like a hard, chewy part. No. Totally soft the whole way through. Nice and squishy. Oh, so good. Next thing you might be thinking. Number two. Oh, sure. But you probably didn't get enough cheese for it, right? They give you 2 of these giant cheese packs, and as you can tell, I didn't even get through one. I didn't even need to open the second one. So plenty of cheese. And the next thing you're probably thinking is, Eating a giant pretzel with a giant tub of cheese in a pitch black movie theater, you're going to get that everywhere, right? This is the shirt I wore. No cheese. No cheese spilled on myself at all. Even though I was gobbing it on there and I was in the dark and I couldn't see anything. And I tell you, I spill food on myself all the time. This is a big shelf here for food to fall on. So I've discovered a new concession opportunity. Now, this is certainly not something that I would recommend to most people. But if you're going to a theater and you are hungry, like Roman, like Roman Pierce in Too Fast, Too Furious, you're hungry, check and see if they've got a giant pretzel. Because that thing did the job, man. That filled me up. Anyway, that's been my talk on Minions, I guess. It was fine. If you have any thoughts on Minions or pretzels or concessions or what have you, feel free to leave those in the comments below. That's everything I got to say. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.